Welcome to the third edition of the ReadID webinar on NFC-based identity verification. We're very pleased to have you all here after the holidays. My name is Maarten Wegdam. I'm CEO of ReadID. With us today is Rianne Rolsma from Aegon. Very happy that she's here. And we'll talk today about speed. The theme of today is speed. So we'll discuss speed in two dimensions. First of all, the speed of implementation. Where Rianne will talk about how long did it take Aegon to implement ReadID. And the second is speed from the perspective of the user. How long does it take me to read the NFC chip of my phone? During the webinar, feel free to ask questions to one of the presenters. You can do this via the chat. We have a team of moderators that will feedback the questions to me or to one of the presenters. So we are happy to discuss them. Or I will answer them directly. But let's start with Rianne. Great to have you in the studio, Rianne.
Thanks.
For those who are not aware, Aegon is one of the world's leading providers of life insurance, pensions, and asset management. And we worked closely with Rianne when implementing ReadID earlier this year. Rianne, can you please introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yes, of course. Well, my name is Rianne. I work for Aegon already for 14 years now. And since February of 2018, I've been working as a product owner with the Bank Online team. The Bank Online team is responsible for the sales funnels for all the Aegon Bank products and also for the bank-specific pages in Mijn Aegon, or the personal banking environment. And with the Bank Online team, we and many others, I have to say, we were responsible also for the ReadID implementation.
Great, good. So let's start at the basics. Before diving into ReadID and implementation. What's the use case you use ReadID for?
Yeah, for us, the context was the customer due diligence, or know your customers, as it's also called, where we needed to start a process of re-verification or re-identification of our customers. So since we are an online bank, we don't have a physical physical desk where people can come. So we needed to find a digital solution for this re-identification process. So we needed a solution to be very efficient, to be secure, to be easy to use for our customers, which was very important. And on top of all that, it also needed to be something that we could do quickly, an implementation that we could do quickly, since the deadline was quite tight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had to do it remotely. This is not COVID related. Even,
no, not COVID related, but definitely remotely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were so you already mentioned a little bit on speed. Yeah. So what were the biggest challenges you going into this project you saw that you had to address?
First was definitely the deadline. I don't want to give away too much because we will talk about speed, of course, but definitely the deadline was a big challenge. The other part is communication to our customer. How are we going to tell our customer what we need? This is something that Aegon wanted from our customer. They will have to take action. So how are we going to do that? So we needed a really good communication plan. And the third one is also infrastructure. So normally we are a supplier of information, and this time we needed to consume information that came from ReadID. So there was changes to be done also in our infrastructure and how would we do that?
Okay, so it's a communication. It's it's a different way to interact with a supplier in this case. Okay.
And the deadline.
And the deadline, but there's nothing like a deadline to make things happen.
True,
I guess.
That's very true.
So of course ReadID does NFC-based verification. So why did you choose this technology and not another technology?
Well, first and foremost, because we needed to something that was proven technology, something that was reliable. And I think since if we talk about OCR, we know that that's not 100% reliable when you have to read data. And we wanted to avoid having to do a manual task, manual matching, or asking customers later on in the process for extra information. And we knew that reading an NFC chip, of course, you get the information that is stored on a chip. So we knew that having that information would be way more reliable than using an OCR solution. So for us, that was a very big decision why we went to the NFC solution in this case. Yeah,
great, thanks. So Aegon is using our ready-to-use app called ReadID Ready. contrary to making, so you chose to use that instead of making an own app, right, with an own
Yeah,
development team
true.
using our SDKs, right? So we have customers doing both. So let's have a look at how this works for Aegon, so that the audience has a view on how you implemented this. And
Yeah.
apologies beforehand for the majority of the audience, since for the Dutch audience, these are Dutch screens,
These are Dutch screens,
but
yes.
I'm sure you can walk us through it.
Of course,
with
no
some
problem.
subtitles. So
no problem.
let's have a look at. So everyone sees now, the first screen.
Can I see it? Yeah. So this first screen is after a customer has logged on to this personal banking environment, in this case, to my Aegon. You will get a notification, and in this case, it's a pop-up where we notify you that you can start your verification. Customer already received an email talking him through what we expect, what is needed, and how the process will work. So as soon as you log on, this is the first pop-up that you see. And here, of course, you can choose to start verification or to maybe postpone to a later date. So that's your option here.
Okay.
And we have a link there also to the landing page, giving a bit more context, a bit more information in case you missed your email, which of course is possible. Then when you started the verification flow, this is the first screen you'll see, the introduction page, taking you through the steps in the process, what we expect, what is needed. So keep your passport or identification card by hand, a mobile phone that is needed. So explaining that a little bit and asking customers to proceed and filling things in based on the truth. Basically, that's the screen. And for the next screen, because we are using the ReadID Ready app, you need, of course, to download the separate app in this case. So this first step on this page is explaining how to download, where to download, and how it will work. So as soon as a customer has done that, you can click next, and then you will see this one where it has the QR code, which you need for scanning, so to get into the app and to actually start the process in the app. And then you see the following screens, which is, of course, using your phone, scanning your passport, first starting with the machine-readable code, which you have to scan. As soon as you've done that, you can also scan your passport, and it will read the contents of your NFC chip. And, of course, also sending it back to Aegon, where a customer can verify, indeed, if the correct information was being sent. And we... oh, this is the notification. Yeah, if a customer stays on this page a bit too long, we expect maybe that he has some trouble either reading the QR code or not being able to find how exactly things work. So we show an extra notification message telling them, just call us if you need any help, if we can assist you.
So there is, so of course you hope that people do this in a fully automated fashion.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone will claim that 100% of the users will work this out, right? So there's no system usable enough and technology mature enough to allow 100%. So they have a way to ask for help, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So after a few minutes, we show this message also to help a customer continue this process. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the final page is indeed what we've read from your chip, from your passport. You can see here that the pass photo, the photo is also scanned. Your information is there, so you can check if it's correct. And if you see that it is correct, indeed, you can proceed.
Yeah.
That's in a nutshell the process, what it looks like in my Aegon and in the app.
Yeah, and so what we haven't shown here, but is that they also do a selfie match, right? So
true.
You check, so the ReadID is used to check that it's a genuine document and to read all the personal data from the document, and then of course, to avoid you borrowing someone else's passport.
We match your face to the passport photo. Yeah.
Okay, great, very clear. Thank you. So now the big question, of course, since we talk about speed, is how long did this take? But before you answer this, let's see. Let's get the audience involved. So I'd like the audience to give their best guess in a poll that's now visible in your browser. How long you think it took Aegon, and then just to avoid confusion, that's starting the moment that you started implementation. And as an information for the audience, in parallel, we did the contract negotiation. So there was a certain intention to do stuff. So we started contract negotiation and implementation in parallel.
Yes.
And then I'm very curious how long the audience think that this works for a big financial institution. While people find the right buttons in the browser, let's one more question for you to give them a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So can you explain why you're using ReadID Ready and not your own app?
Well, that mainly is because of time, actually, because of our deadline. We simply didn't have the time to invest in development for our own app. And also the ReadID Ready app has the functionality exactly what we needed. So we could adjust it, giving it our own look and feel so that it feels like an Aegon app. But yeah, for us, with the time constraints, it was simply the better choice. Yeah.
So it wasn't about cost or competence. It was, again, about speed. It was
definitely about speed.
Starting the process quicker.
We wanted
and
to start
ready
as soon
to
as we
use
could.
app. Yeah,
yes.
Of course. Yeah, that will save you.
Yeah.
Okay, clear. So the answers on so we asked less than 1 month, less than 2 months, less than 3 months, less than 4 months, and less than 5 months. So most answers are on less than 3 and less than 2. Some people are optimistic and say less than 1, and some are more pessimistic. No one thinks it took that long, to be honest. So give us the answer.
The subject is speed, right? Yeah, well, in all honesty, I had to look it up. It was pre-corona, of course, pre-COVID. So I had to look it up. And I saw that our first kickoff sessions was in the week of the 20th of January. So development started the week after that. And I was the first customer to go through on the 5th of March.
Yeah.
So that's 6 weeks.
Yeah. Which again is so it's the less than 2 months, right? So that's the correct answer.
Yes.
We don't give out awards to the people that gave the correct answer, but but this is, to be honest, right? So this is so we do a lot of these projects, right, with smaller and with bigger companies. But even for a smaller company, this would have been challenging. This is by far the quickest for a big financial institute.
It was really quick.
It was really quick. So we're also so we're proud of you, but also a little bit proud of ourselves. That we could get it working that quickly. And I guess so that's pressure makes things fluid, right? So in Dutch expression.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that helped here, right? So it got everyone focused.
Yeah.
And making choices, let's say, quicker than we would normally do.
Yes, true.
So how did you make this happen? So what are lessons learned on the implementation? Things that you would definitely not change in how you implemented it, or things that you if you would do it differently, if you could travel back in time to get a maybe better implementation or an even quicker implementation?
Yeah, even quicker.
The good, bad, and the ugly of the implementation.
Yeah, I think what you already said, the main thing was that everybody was so fully focused on reaching the deadline. So I think that really helped. When everybody wants to reach the same goal, then you got momentum and things happen. So that was awesome. Also the kickoff sessions that really helped. I think we had 3 or 4 kickoff sessions in that very first week, where architecture was there, security was there, UX designers, developers. So everybody had a really clear image of where we wanted to go. And I think maybe also very important is that we decided on an MVP. So also decided not to do everything. We knew that in the short time we couldn't do everything, so we had to make some choices, and we kept it simple so that we could reach our deadline. So I think that was also really important to do.
I guess the MVP, I see every customer saying always this, but in reality things drift a little.
Absolutely.
And here, because of the time pressure, it didn't drift. And I think also from my perspective, I think so the kickoff at like 2 days, doing very intensively with everyone. That's a process that in some cases otherwise is spread over 2 months.
Exactly. I think it really helped that it was all together and everybody had the same goal, same image.
Which, by the way, in the COVID world would have been complicated to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were lucky that it was pre-COVID, I think.
Okay, so now it's live. So how is it going? Are the users happy? Are you happy?
I am happy. I'm really proud of what we did in that really short period of time. I think we built a really good flow, really nice flow that customers can use. Our customers are happy. We always knew that was going to be a bit of a challenge because, like I said earlier, it's something that we are asking our customer to do. So it's hard to really find a good balance in making sure that your customer is also happy. Sometimes we do see customers struggling a little bit with technology, either with downloading the app or with scanning the QR code or with scanning the passport. But of course, we're trying to help them as good as we can with either by phone or chat, and also take back their feedback in improving on our flow. So making sure that every step is even better explained than we thought we were already doing. But hopefully it will help to get customers through it. What we do see is that we have quite a high conversion. So even though we see some customers struggling, we do see a conversion between 60 and 70% currently of people actually finishing the flow. So I think that is really, really quite high. Yeah. So I'm really proud of that. It's better than we expected. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, good. I think, actually it's a subject of a next webinar on the conversion, but I think, next to speed, I think conversion is, one of the things that's crucial, right? And in this case, the typical, let's say, onboarding case, registering, right? That there's a carrot for the person, right? They want a bank account, or they want a mortgage, or they want to be able to stay in the country, or whatever.
Yeah, true.
Here, it's like a bureaucratic.
Yeah, it's the other way around. We are asking you to do something.
Yeah, so then people are less motivated, so it's easier for them to, to not, do their best and just throw it aside.
Yeah, forget the email. So I think we should be really proud of those numbers.
Yeah. Good. So you use the enterprise version of the ReadID Ready app, so which is the fully white label thing. So it's in your app store, your Play Store account, your App Store account. Users won't notice that it's ReadID. But this is a standardized product. So that means, I remember lots of use case changes, can change that. So some things you can change, some things you cannot change, right? So since it's a standard product. So how did you deal with those limitations in the customization? Were they an issue? Are there certain things you had to work around?
For us, that wasn't so much an issue. I think we mainly focused on making it look and feel like an actual Aegon app, so our customers would feel comfortable using it. But functionality-wise, it did everything that we needed it to do. So for us, it was quite good, and it was what we expected of it. Yeah. I think also relating to your earlier question, if you could go back in time, what would you do differently? I think maybe if we also had a little bit more time than the 6 weeks that we did, we might try and build our own, because then you can fully integrate it in your process, and you wouldn't have to ask customers to download a separate app. So that might also help with the user experience a little bit more than we're doing now. But it works, and it does everything it needed to do, and it looks and feels like an Aegon app. So for us, it was a good choice.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And of course, could always at some point in time, right, always switch to an own app, exactly. Or do this sequentially. Yeah, so it's another choice for life. So let's open it up for questions to Rianne. Let me see, and I have to click something here. So are there any questions for Rianne from the audience? Let me see. I have one question here. What was the size of Aegon's development team during the implementation?
Oh, that's our standard team. So we're with 8 people, including me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
3 developers.
3 developers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for the audience, right? So the development here is really backend integration, right? So it's the website and the backends of Aegon towards the app, right? So the app itself, of course, if you would have had a mobile team, you would have
also needed developers
like
there.
2, 3 platform.
And then of course there was a separate team working on the workflow and the backend processes as well. So, but purely for the My Aegon flow and the integration of the ReadID app, it was a team of 8, which consists of 3 developers.
Which shows that if you have a small focus team, right, you can get very far very quickly. So we already talked a little bit about the conversion, but how do you handle the customers that are not responding, that are ignoring? Yeah, so not maybe it's someone that's struggling with the technology or but how do you handle that? What do you do?
If we don't hear at all from our customers, you mean? If they don't
respond at all. They ignore you completely and say, whatever.
That's a good question. What we're trying to do in the communication plan is not only reach people by email, but also use a separate second line of communication, which in this case is mostly a letter, which might be a bit harder to ignore than email, because email, of course, you either change your email address or maybe it just comes into your spam box and you won't see it. So that's at least we're using 2 separate lines of communication. Also, of course, the block in My Aegon itself. Yeah. So you get the pop-up there. So even if you haven't seen your email, but you are eligible for using this flow, you will see it as soon as you log on. Yeah. And at one point, you would not be able to ignore the pop-up anymore, because we will remove the option to do it later, to postpone. Then it will be a little bit more severe. and then we really ask you to do it now before you can enter your product. So
Okay,
yeah,
so slowly we're
increasing building
pressure.
Up a little bit. Yeah, true.
So first with friendly, so there's a little carrot here, right? So, but there's friendly asking.
Still,
and at a certain point in time, you'll get out the stick. And,
we really, because of course we really need this information. It's really important to have your data. So so we need to be a bit more severe near the end.
I guess in the meantime, because of the conversion rates, you already have lots of the users that have to go through this. You already tick those boxes, right? So you can focus on a smaller and smaller set of remaining consumers.
Exactly, smaller groups of people maybe needing either a bit of a different kind of communication or whatever it is that we need for those groups. Yeah.
Okay, another question. Are you using this, using this for existing customers for re-identification, right? So the Dutch financial regulator are requiring this or the internal risk departments. But are you also using this for new consumers?
Not yet.
Why not?
Why not? Well, we only had 6 weeks, Maarten. Okay. We didn't have the time.
It's a priority issue, right?
It really was a priority issue. So this group was the most important, getting our existing customers to re-identify. Yeah.
Okay, clear. Let me see if there's more questions. So you kind of already answered it, but so I'll ask it. So why did you choose ReadID and not one of the image or optical based document check providers?
Yeah, well, for us, it was mainly about reliability of getting the data from the NFC chip. You know that, the data is stored there and you get it 100% back. And for OCR, we know that sometimes letters get misplaced, or a 0 is an O suddenly. So that might mean that you need some manual tasks in there, or that you will have to go back to a customer later in time, asking them to do it either again or to ask for a copy. And we wanted to avoid that. So
so by avoiding the manual task, you can do the large numbers you're doing
exactly.
with a small team. Otherwise, you would have had a big team of people. And of course, it's for you already ask one of your customers to do something they don't necessarily think is very pleasant. True. And then if they have to redo it, I guess,
you want to make it as easy as possible, first time right.
Then a mistake in the OCR is annoying for all parties involved, I guess. Okay, I think this covered the main questions here. We'll have a second round of questions later on. So so that means that so thank you so far. So now what we do is move on to the next subject, which is about the speed from the perspective of the end user. But first we do some news items. ReadID news. So we have 4 items ready for you. First item is that we've been nominated for the NFC Application Award in the area of the best application for iOS. As a reminder for people, only a year ago, Apple released the APIs needed on iOS for ReadID to work on iPhones. A very big moment in the history of our company. And a game changer, I guess, for the identity verification sector. So we've been nominated by the NFC Forum in the Best NFC Application in iOS Award, and we hope at the end of the month that we also win. A pointer to a new blog we posted on our website. The UK government released a new guidance on identity verification, and that really makes a very interesting webinar subject. So we'll keep it short here and just point you to the blog post. But the bottom line of this new guidance is that it's very NFC friendly, meaning that if you use NFC in a remote identity verification process, you very quickly get to the high level, and without it, you will not be able to get to the high level. Another blog post that recently was published is on the Dutch government organization CBR, which is responsible for taking driver license exams. As is described in the use case, is that CBR actually is using this to empower people, their employees in a face-to-face scenario, to check the validity of an identity document. And I can assure you this is not a hypothetical risk, right? So they have caught people with false documents and also caught look-alike fraud, which is a big problem. Yeah, you get someone who looks like you to take the driver's exam. But of course, the chipped photo has a much higher resolution, so it's easier to detect look-alike frauds. The last one we want to mention in the set of news is that we deep dived the residence permits in Europe. Yeah, residence permits, there's an EU regulation that requires residence permits to have an ICAO compliant chip, so one that we can verify using ReadID. So we looked at all the countries if they actually use this, and as the map you see here shows, it's a lot of green. Yeah, so that means basically all, with two small exceptions, European countries actually also have these chips in their residence permits, making it possible with ReadID to verify them. You see some countries in blue, those are countries that do not publicly release their country certificate. Doesn't mean we cannot verify them, but it's a bit more complicated. So contact us if one of those countries is relevant for you. So now we go to my colleague on speed. And we go to my colleague Bill Jansen, who will zoom in on speed, and then not on the speed of implementation, but on the speed from the user perspective, including how long does it take to actually read an NFC chip using your mobile phone. Bill, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maarten. Yeah, indeed, speed. How fast is fast in practice? We're quite impressed by the 6 weeks that Aegon took to implement the whole stuff, but then eventually it's about the user experience. How fast does the process go? How easy is it to use the whole verification process? Well, speed is important to us, and therefore we also measure a lot. And measuring data in this kind of applications is a sensitive subject. We deal with very privacy-sensitive data, so I would like to emphasize that the data we gather for this kind of analytics is completely anonymous. We, for example, get the data on the phone details, so version of the phone, and so on. We get the data on the document, what type of document is an identity document, is the ID card, passport, driving license, and so on. And we, of course, monitor the data on the usability. How long do certain steps take? If you want to know more about what data we record, check our privacy statement, and we list completely the data that we use. We measure both in our free demo app that has been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times. It's really been used a lot, and therefore it's a very valuable source of information to us. But we also monitor, of course, our production apps. And why do we do all that monitoring? Because we also want to give feedback to our customers. For example, if a customer implements his or her own app, the quality of the implementation and of the way the user interfacing is handled strongly influences its performance. So by monitoring well how the application performs, you can give detailed feedback on how to improve the process in the user interface. So that's one big thing. Also, we created a dashboard with all performance metrics for every customer. But obviously also we're always looking for performance improvements possibilities. So where in our technology are the sweet spots for improvement that can be tackled? And one very interesting element of the analytics is that we can also detect anomalies. For example, if a batch of passports would have some strange characteristics in terms of NFC placement or performance of the chip, we can quite easily see that in our batch and also in our analytics, and also give feedback to our customers to be aware of these kinds of anomalies. All in all, we want to create the best user experience. What do we measure? Well, ReadID follows 2 steps. The first step is capturing and reading the MRZ. You already saw it also. It was partly explained by Rianne. So we have to check the inside of the passport, the MRZ. And once we've read that, we have the access code to the chip, and then we can read the chip with the phone. So both steps are distinct, and both steps are measured in detail. Let's start with the first step. So reading the machine readable zone. It's the bottom 2 lines in your passport or on your ID card. One step is finding the MRZ with the camera, and the second step is then actually reading the characters, interpreting them, and checking whether they are correct. So we measure two things: the actual scanning of the machine readable zone, but also the total time of reading and checking the MRZ. Now we move into the data. Maybe a bit of proof by intimidation, but these are the data from our analytics dashboard. We've used ReadID Analytics on our demo apps, about 15,000 scans. It was an analysis that was done quite recently, and it was only on the MRZ scans that were completed, so that ended successfully. And there you see two, well, you can distinguish two things from these graphics. The full reading time from starting to scanning, scanning the MRZ with the passport, finding the MRZ and then interpreting it, takes about, on average, 5 seconds. The actual reading and interpretation of the MRZ, Rianne also mentioned that doing things optically is sometimes quite difficult, only takes about a second of those 5. So the MRZ in general takes 5 seconds, of which the actual scanning is about a second. And that is quite fast. How did we create this type of speed? Now, first and foremost, all the computing is done on the device. So nothing has to be sent back to the server. The processing of all cryptographic data, security data is done on the server, but the MRZ, the processing is purely done on the phone. And that helps in creating more speed. Also, we do real-time verification of the check digits. So we quickly interpret the check digits. When they are correct, we can stop the scanning when they match. And we do the processing in the graphical processing units of the smartphones. Many of those smartphones have great graphical processing units, thanks to all the juveniles that use it for gaming or that use it for video, Netflixing on your phone. There's great performance in your phone. And by actually exploiting that performance, we can create this type of speed. And then the final thing, well, once in a while we do nothing. Every generation of phones that comes out has better cameras, better processing power, and we over time we've seen a drastic increase of speed only due to the fact that the hardware improves over time. So time is our friend, and it will only get faster in due course. But all in all, 5 seconds, of which 1 second is taken by the actual reading of the MRZ. So that was the first step. Let's move to the second step, and that's reading the chip. Basically, reading the chip takes a number of steps. The first thing is that you have to make sure that the phone is able to read the chip by positioning it in the right way. The second step is then actually reading the data from the chip. And the third step is checking whether the data is correct. All kinds of security measures built into the chip. For example, also checking that there's no, that it's not a copied chip and so on. So we have all kinds of security measures that have been implemented. So we have to check them as well. The first step, finding the right place to put your phone with respect to the passport, has improved drastically over the last few years because we get a lot of data on where all the chips in the different identity documents are. So we give detailed guidance on the basis of the type of document on how to put the document with respect to your phone. So that has been speeded up quite nicely. And the last step, well, basically verification, it's negligible. It takes less than 1/10 of a second to do all the verifications given the performance of the modern phones. So let's then focus on reading the chip. The chip has a number of data groups in it. Won't go into details of that. If you want to have more details, check our first webinar where Maarten explained the contents of the chip as well. But it contains the name, the expiry date, all kinds of textual data, but it also contains a high resolution pass photo. So quite a bit of data to go over the NFC connection. How long does that take? On average, the reading time of the chip was roughly 5 to 6 seconds. So to get all the data from the chip through the NFC connection is 5 to 6 seconds. So that's quite limited. And also there we've seen an increase of speed. It of course depends on the exact type of phone, but it also depends quite a lot on the type of identity documents. Some identity cards are not as fast as some passports because they have used a different type of chip or other kinds of implementation issues. So you see a wide variance of times that it takes to read the chip, but on average 5 to 6 seconds. So that's quite modest. So for the technical parts of the remote identification, we have about 5 seconds for reading the MRZ. We have 5 to 6 seconds for reading the chip. So the actual work that the phone has to do. Again, these were data from our demo apps in the last month, so it was the same batch of data that we used for the other graphics. I already mentioned that there are differences between phones, and as we all know, we have different audiences and different fan clubs worldwide with respect to the phones. We have the iOS lovers and iOS haters. We have the Android lovers and the Android haters. So one question that continuously arises within our analytics group is, who is the winner? Well, is there a winner? Well, there is, kind of. On the left-hand side, the performance of iOS, and this was done with Dutch passports in the demo app. So we took from our demo app all the scans in this time that used Dutch passports, so to rule out the differences between different identity documents. On average, iOS took 9 seconds to read the chip. Android took 11.1 seconds to read the chip. So in that sense, you could say we have a winner, definitely. But on the other hand, if we compare iOS to the more recent and technological advanced phones like a Samsung S10, then the analytics show that where iOS had a 9.0 seconds scanning average, Samsung only has a 9.1 second average. So that's basically comparable. And please note that for Android, we support many different versions of Androids. Also, older phones with Android are part of this batch, whereas for iOS, only starting iPhone 7 and iOS 13, we were able to use the NFC capability. So it's they're a bit of different groups of phones. So on average, iOS is faster, but when we would compare it only to the high-end models, probably it is comparable. So the battle continues in that sense. We'll see with the new phones how this actually works out. So now we've seen the two components of the verification, but in the end, it's about the full customer journey. It's about conversion. So will the customer fulfill the whole journey? Will he or she stay in? And how long does that take? Then it also means well, finding the right page in the passport and turning your phone again on because it's locked again. So you have all kinds of, let's say, logistical issues in the full customer journey. So some data on how then the whole process takes. So how long does it take for the full remote identity verification? Here we took a different batch because we did not only do the MRZ, the NFC, but also did the face matching with it, and also as we used ReadID Ready, well, the app that has also been used by Aegon, it also includes the QR scan. So it's the full process from the first time you use your phone in scanning the QR code up until the actual verification. Yeah, indeed, it is Wil Jansen that tried to identify himself. This is the characteristic. So the longest time it was up to half an hour, but on average it was a 9-minute average. So on top of the twice, the 5 seconds or the 10 seconds that the technological part of the journey took, the whole customer journey takes a bit longer. And this was a very recent production batch of our scans that we took for this. So it's quite a representative set of scans. It's about 400 scans that we used to do this analysis. So 9 minutes. There's a bit more than, of course, the seconds that we are talking about. But the question then is, does it suffice? Is the whole customer journey good enough to lead to conversion? And also, Rianne already mentioned a bit about that 60-70% conversion in their case. But recently also we found a nice customer story on well, how it works. And the story was about the Home Office EU settlement scheme, one of our well-known use cases that we'll also be talking about in our next webinar. It was about European people living in the UK that now, because of the Brexit, have to apply for the settlement status. And this is a story of Sonia Andre. She is a French lady living in Bishop's Stortford. Had to look it up. It's kind of halfway between London and Cambridge. And she was really, well, she was really struggling with the whole step of actually applying for the EU settlement status. She did so, and well, as she put it here in the local newspaper, after months of putting my application, putting off my application to remain in the UK, she was quite hesitant to do the whole process. It only took me 15 minutes to apply. Please note that the Home Office EU settlement scheme application also has a number of additional checks, so it's a more complicated customer journey. It took her 15 minutes, maybe together with her son, but what she said, 15 minutes. After all those months, it actually took me 15 minutes to apply, all done remotely, and within 4 days, I had a positive response from the Home Office. Now, that positive response obviously is not due to ReadID, but it again indicates that the whole customer journey is in such a way that there's direct feedback and there's positive feedback, and the journey reinforcements the user experience that you would like to have. So these are things that we like reading, and thank you also World Reach for posting it, because we found it through our partner World Reach. So to conclude, how fast is fast in practice? Well, we think it's very fast. The speed of the application can match the speed of the implementation, as was shown by Rianne. And this speed is essential in creating conversion, because in the end, you want the process to lead to customers that are happy and that go through the happy flow. So this type of speed, we think, boosts your conversion. This much on speed and the facts and figures of ReadID. Maarten.
Thank you, Il, for explaining to us how this works. So we have a couple of minutes left, and there were some additional questions for Rianne.
Okay.
So yeah,
I hope I can help.
please brace yourself. Let me start with a question from Mirel. I can imagine that the whole process is tough for the elderly, he or she says. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's true. That's also what I was talking about, with some people struggling with the technology or maybe not owning the correct phone. The good news is that you can get some help from your family members if they do have a correct phone. But yeah, we try to help them as much as we can through the phone, really taking them there step by step. If it's really not possible technologically to make especially our elderly customers to go through the flow, then we do have an alternative. But yeah, that's we do try to get everybody as much as we can through the digital flow.
Okay, and that kind of is associated with another question. From Pien. So what if the phone cannot do NFC, or the document doesn't have NFC? Do you have like an optical fallback, or is the fallback, you have some other form of fallback?
Yeah, definitely. So a different alternative. So if you don't have the correct phone, or your document doesn't contain the NFC chip, we cannot let you go through this flow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not an online process.
So
we have other customers that
yeah.
then fall back to an optical flow, right? So you chose to do differently. Question from Thomas. So in the Netherlands, driving licenses also have a chip.
Yeah.
So why did you choose not to use the driving license also in this process?
Yeah, mainly keeping things simple as possible for us. So that's the really basic answer. Yeah. Keeping it simple in the communication, in the app, in the flow. Really choosing just to allow a passport and identification card. Yeah,
So rather without driving licenses in 6 weeks than with driving licenses in 8 weeks. For
exactly.
example.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's the MVP thinking, I guess, that we see here. And of course, in the Netherlands, at least by law, you have to have an ID card
exactly.
or a passport,
So
so everyone should have it.
We don't really see issues with it. I think in the beginning there were some customers asking if they could use a driver's license, but we don't really see that feedback as much anymore. So I think it's okay for our Dutch customers to use a passport or an identification card for this.
Okay. So then a question, I'm not sure you can otherwise, otherwise we try to answer it together from Marcus. So why not use an EID card active authentication with PIN next to the passive NFC reading?
Wow. I'm
Should
indeed not sure if I can answer that.
So the idea is, the Dutch ID cards
Okay.
don't have a PIN, right? So some
true.
countries have an ID card where you can also use a PIN, and then, for example, you would not have to do the selfie. So you would have a two-factor by something you have, the card, and the PIN, something you know.
Yeah.
But in the Netherlands, we simply don't have that currently, right? There are plans to do that. If that would have existed, I think we would have put it in ReadID Ready, and you would have used it.
Yeah, exactly.
But for the Dutch market, this is not an option currently. Okay, let's do the very last question. Question to me, actually. Question from Rafael. How do you detect fraudulent documents? So the contents of the chip is additionally signed by the Dutch government. So the core process is checking those digital signatures. And the second check we do is cloning detection. So there's a secret stored on it, and we send it a challenge and a response, and we can check if that card actually knows that secret, meaning we can detect if it's a clone. So we really solve this using crypto, contrary to looking at, for example, the color or a fine print or other, let's say, physical characteristics. Okay, and then I think we're out of time, so let's wrap this up. So thank you all for attending our webinar on speed. And I want to quickly mention our next one, October 8th, which will focus on conversion, which is actually one of the most asked questions to us. We'll have our partner World Reach to talk about how they use ReadID in the EU settlement scheme in the UK, and other use cases, why they use it, and how they have a conversion and how they get it high. And we'd love to see you back. But before we really close, thanks again, Rianne, for joining us. I really was happy that you were here. And
it was fun.
Good. It was fun and it was interesting. So thanks a lot. And for now, for everyone, stay healthy, stay secure, and goodbye and tot ziens.